trucks are different. Tacoma is built for your life's adventures. Dependable day in and day out for weekend warriors and as a die-hard work truck. Tacomas also do better when it comes to fuel costs. Now's the time to buy right. Toyota trucks are different.
Inside PressBox is presented by Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. Go to Freedmont.com now for all of your mortgage needs. And welcome to another edition of Inside PressBox. I'm your host, Stan the Fan Charles, and we have, as usual, a jam-packed and fun show for you. The Grand Prix of Baltimore, the celebration of acceleration, is just 2 weeks away as it rolls into town over Labor Day weekend. We'll have one of the drivers from the Le Mans portion of the races, Tommy Milner Jr. from Washington, D.C. Tommy was kind enough to Skype with us earlier in the week from Virginia. Tommy drives now for the Corvette racing team. And fantasy football is just about to rear its beautiful head. Nobody in this town knows it better than the proprietor of website fansfantasyfootball.com, Ken Zalis. KZ also writes throughout each week for PressBoxOnline.com. We visited him over at Friends School where he has his day job. But first, he's a writer, like myself, a former radio talk show host. He's also an entrepreneur, but more than anything, he's as passionate about his football team as anyone I know. That passion has led him to now write his second book on the Ravens' Super Bowl victory. He is nasty, Nestor Aparicio. I appreciate your coming in.
Good to see you, Stan. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. Nestor, I didn't read the entire book. I can't lie to you.
Who can? It's too big.
But I jumped into it in the middle, and I started out, wait a minute, before I get to that, I got to ask you, your relationship, you know, Brian Billick is a good friend of yours,
yes,
business partner. This book centers a lot on things pertaining to the post-Billick era. Was that an awkward position for you to be in?
I thought it might have been. You know what I mean? Brian's got a great sense of humor about himself, and he called me in the middle of March because he was excited that the Ravens won. I mean, he still has a lot of friends, and obviously Ozzie and he are very close. Most of the front office very, very close, and I don't think he even holds a grudge against Bisciotti. He doesn't. He's never even said anything.
The two of them have gotten warmed up over the last year.
I saw him in Canton last week at the Ogden thing. It was great, but Brian called me in the middle of March. Hey, how's the book coming along? Because he's my coach too, he's always he's a mentor to me, and I said, Brian, you still get shot in the head in the first scene. Sorry, man. And he said, well, I expected that, and I don't think he had any problem with the premise of it. And I think the whole the book really does start with how he gets fired and how Bisciotti chose Harbaugh, and then how Ozzie came about, how Ray Lewis wound up here, how Art Modell weaved it all through, and then how it kind of came together. Joe Flacco is the biggest part of the book, and the part I'm the proudest of, because I don't think his story has ever really been told in that way.
It hasn't been. But this is sort of a quilt then of everything that sort of the organization has been through since it arrived in Baltimore, but most importantly, after Brian Billick was let go.
Well, I mean, my first skill was journalism at the paper with John Stedman and all those guys. And the question you always ask, the five, who, what, where, why, when, how did this happen? How was the question for me. How did this come together? How did Ray Lewis wind up on the dais with that trophy? And I wanted to go back and examine everything I could that I knew about, that I could ask about. And so it's a roadmap. To me, it's a roadmap from the minute Billick was fired, but it still goes back to O.J. Brigance and Ozzie Newsome and Art Modell.
Threads pulled throughout.
Sure, but from this perspective, this championship was changed, I believe, on the day John Harbaugh accepted the job. And, of course, Jason Garrett turned the job down.
I remember that very well.
They could have drafted.
What was his wife's name? She had the oddest name,
Brill. There you go.
Brill.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But for me, the Flacco thing is also the most compelling part, because, I mean, you hire a special teams coach that couldn't get the Boston College job, and still might not be a head coach in the NFL had the Ravens not made that move.
Right.
And then the Flacco thing, 1 AA quarterback from Delaware. They wanted Matt Ryan. That's who they wanted. And just they couldn't trade up to get him. And incidentally, Billick won that last game against Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
and it cost them the draft position of maybe getting Matt Ryan. So
interesting history. The two chapters I really dug in and got into, and I really enjoyed them, were the one about the Carefrontation.
Carefrontation.
The mid-season sort of, or actually not mid-season, about 5-6 weeks into the season, right after the Houston game.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about that, because, you know, when you see a team win a championship, you think, boy, this must have been a great ride.
Everything was perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Anything but this may be the seminal moment in Harbaugh's coaching career.
Well, they lost the Houston game awfully. It was just as bad on the offense as the whole team stunk. I mean, we sat there and watched it. It was over by halftime. They came back, and they had the bye coming up, and John wanted to work them to the bone. John was pissed. He was pissed. He wanted to work them to the bone, and players were bristling, and Bernard Pollard. It was reported by Mike Silver, Yahoo, after the San Diego game that this incident had happened.
Right.
And, you know, so it was reported that Harbaugh had softened it and given the team its way, and it allowed them to practice without pads. He gave in. But there was a big story about the conflict that happened in the room that day.
He termed it as sort of a mutiny.
Mike Silver did.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
not you.
real. And it wasn't Mike Silver, it was the headline writer.
Okay.
The headline writer called it mutiny, and that really bristled John. And John said it wasn't a mutiny. It was a family meeting. And apparently Flacco and Bernard Pollard had some words, and Harbaugh gave in, and the players saw him as being more pliable at that point. In 2008,
they saw his willingness to give in as almost a strength rather than a weakness.
And John, throughout the book, chronicled, talked by everybody, John has changed, and John won't admit it. John says, I haven't changed anything, which is, John's style. But John has now created this committee within the team with team leaders at different positions, the Matt Burks, the Haloti Ngata's, the Ray Lewis's, the Ed Reeds, Joe Flacco all came in, and they would talk to John, and John would say, what do you think about this? And allow the players, at least the key players, to feedback and then take it down to the locker room so it could be sold down the river, which was one of the problems Brian had at the end, was that he didn't have great communication with his players,
Let's jump, though, ahead about 5 or 6 more weeks to when they make the decision to let go of Cam Cameron, which was, again, a unique timing
Never been done before that you fire an offensive coordinator 2 weeks before Christmas.
We got about a minute and a half. Go ahead.
So the Cam Cameron thing, I just went into in length. A lot of people thought it was personality-based. And keep in mind, the offense didn't underperform in that Redskin game. The offense was okay in the Redskin game. When I drilled down to it, it came down to Cam would prepare the game plan one way during the week, and on Sunday it wouldn't always be executed that way. And there was just conflict. And Joe and Cam was Joe's biggest sponsor. Joe was here because Cam fell in love with him during the scouting process in that March and April.
And that's in this book as
absolutely. Well. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stories in there, and I think everyone that loves the Ravens would enjoy it.
I don't want to take it down to the last second because I want to give you a chance to plug where people, and I know we're going to show the book, but where people can get the book.
It's a click away on your phone. Just go to WNST.net. You can Google Purple Rain REIGN 2. It's available on Amazon. The hardback is the best way to get it. I'll sign it. They're at Greetings and Readings. They're at Box Hill Pizzeria up in Bel Air. Raven Zone, of course, the Great Zone Superstore on Joppa Road. Very easy to find. We'll be out doing Raven shows all during the year. I have it in the trunk of my car, quite frankly. But thank you for your time.
I enjoyed the book. What I've read so far, I'm looking forward to digging in. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure, and I hope you have as good a season. I hope Purple Rain 3 is around the corner.
All right. Hey, once again, the book is Purple Rain 2, and it's available at the Zone Superstore and other fine retailers, as Nestor just mentioned.
And happy ending. It has a happy ending.
When we get back, we'll have our Skype interview with race car driver Tommy Milner Jr. Don't go away. Celebrate Jonathan Ogden's Hall of Fame career with this limited edition Collector's Magazine, which covers Ogden's career from high school to the pros and beyond. Enjoy behind-the-scenes stories from his coaches, as well as the team's decision to make Ogden the Ravens' first ever draft pick in 1996. Reserve your copy now at PressBoxOnline.com.